Hello everyone and welcome to the Suitcase and Chardonnay podcast, an extension of my blog by the same name. I'm your host, Renata Engelbrecht, and here we talk all things lifestyle, travel, fashion, food and wine. Today's episode takes us into the heart of South Africa's creative economy, because the things we wear, the objects we cherish, the spaces we curate, and the flavors we love all begin with a maker. A human, a real human, with a real story. And those stories are under threat. I'm joining you from the vibrant KAMERS market, a cornerstone of local craftsmanship and one of the most influential creative platforms on the continent. With me is Ben-Carl Havemann, CEO and co-owner of KAMERS, and together we unpack a pressing issue affecting consumers, entrepreneurs, and the broader South African economy, the rapid influx of cheap imported goods and what it means for our artisans, our jobs, and our cultural identity. This conversation is an invitation not just to shop local, but to understand why it matters. So pour a glass, settle in, and let's talk about the future of South African creativity, resilience, and beautifully made things. What a privilege to start a Tuesday morning, a rainy Tuesday morning,
Very rainy.
supporting local and connecting with you on a topic that we're both very passionate about. I think before we dive into the heavy topic of the effects of, the hectic, cheap imports coming into the country, perhaps maybe just quickly paint a little picture for us where you're at with KAMERS markers and also how you guys represent the creative industry in South Africa.
Thank you. So, KAMERS has been going for 23 years. It started out as KAMERS vol geskenke, or rooms full of gifts, in Stellenbosch 23 years ago. And over this time, more than 7,500 local businesses and brands have been part of the journey. Today, we present 6 what we call headline shows a year across the country, which attracts around 60,000 visitors, and we generate about 100 million in revenue for the creative economy in South Africa. Of the businesses this year, we had 400 businesses that were part of the 6 headline shows, and they employ approximately 4,000 people directly and indirectly. So there's a lot of people that depend on us to be the launchpad or platform that we are.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's really something to be very proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's just quickly dive into the impact of cheap imports in South Africa. It's sometimes a bit of a difficult topic, I suppose, even amongst friends.
Yes.
But I think the latest localization support fund, right?
Yes.
Report stated that about 7.3 billion rand of sales have been generated just by Temu and Shein.
So the report said that since Temu and Shein entered the market, South African market in the past 5 years, 960 million rand has already been sucked out of the local economy, and
Yeah.
8,000 jobs in manufacturing and retail has been lost. Then they did modeling looking forward. So if we don't stop this, by 2030, another 7.3 billion will be gone out of the South African
That's
economy,
incredible.
and 34,000 jobs. So this is a massively serious issue facing all of us.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's enough awareness among South African consumers about the things we are doing, that it might be cheap to buy something now, but the long-term consequence is quite extraordinary.
Yeah. No, it's really it could be devastating for the economy. So I think it's like you said, when you translate those figures into jobs lost, then it's about 8,000
Yes,
job
already
yeah.
lost.
And I was wondering, have you seen any of these knock-on effects among some of the creatives that you work with in the industry?
Yes, many of the businesses that we work with have been impacted. We are a launchpad, so I mean, we trade for 6 days now. So those businesses need to generate a revenue beyond the 6 days. So a few of them, which had products at us, have had to change their business essentially because the products being imported now were similar and were just much cheaper because they're manufactured in mass in China,
Yeah.
and in sometimes the labor practices and etc. is not the same as here. So yes, there's definitely a lot who has been impacted, and in some ways, some of them have pivoted into something new and doing better. So there is sometimes a silver lining around the dark
I
cloud.
hear you.
Yes,
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and I think that's one thing about South Africans, I suppose. I'm always in awe of how we innovate and
absolutely.
how we stay creative and positive, even amidst.
I travel a lot, and South African design does not have to stand back to anyone in the
Yeah.
world. I think it's fantastic because we've got so many diverse backgrounds. It's like this melting pot of ideas that
Yeah.
produce really unique and wonderful things.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and have you found that these cheap imports coming in from all over have had an effect on South Africans' perception of quality over the years?
I think I'm going to answer it in another way. I think our consumer behavior as South Africans, we think that something that is imported, even in from Europe, is better than South Africa.
Which is not.
Not. So that's what our big job is to promote the talent and creativity of South Africa. The one area where we have to invest and um, really focus is to strengthen and scale the local manufacturing. So, we need to have factories here that produce the clothes, etc. So that's really where the gap at the moment is. So
Yeah.
we can, how do we take a business that is here for 6 days, but then us be able to export, and have enough capacity to build it. So that's one area where we as a South African economy are not good enough.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I've spoken to someone before for another interview, and she also mentioned that there are fewer and fewer people willing to make the clothes, for instance. And I, for instance, never wanted to learn. So, and now I'm mad at myself for not
Yeah.
learning. So I think there is a gap in the market for something like that, where people actually make these things.
Yeah, so I think what we see, and if we look at the impact we have, there is a whole ecosystem. So if somebody is making shoes, that local person is buying the leather from a local seller. There's a whole ecosystem around the product,
Yes,
which
yeah,
is getting lost if it gets imported.
yeah,
I think this is one of the big things that has often been debated in the education system. The move away from TVET colleges, really formally, in the late 90s, is to get the artisanal, careers back because
yes,
they are so
yeah,
important.
yeah.
There's a very exciting school that is opening in Stellenbosch, and as they're planning more later this year, which is called the Craft School, where people
Oh,
can go
cool.
to learn to become a crafter. So I think we're seeing it a bit more that we need to focus on it, but it's also something the education department really needs to start pushing. So
Yeah,
everybody does,
absolutely.
and now we're sitting in a situation where, the youth think that you need to be a lawyer or you need to be an accountant. Yes, we need all of those people as well. Although we're seeing with AI that those things might not be so important
Yeah.
anymore, it will be the true talent that is important. That people need to develop that.
Yeah. Do you think South Africans in general really understand the cost of supporting this model of convenience and fast fashion and things like that? Or do you think they're a bit ignorant about it?
No, I completely think they are ignorant. And, there's a number of things that need to be done from a government point of view. Yes, there has been a duty and levy now imposed on small value items, but I don't think it's enough. Other countries in Europe have put limits or bans on the advertising by these giants. So if you are a young person and you're seeing Temu and Shein all the time on Instagram because they are spending enormous amounts on
They are,
advertising,
yeah, yeah.
um, you know how how are you? You are going to fall for it. And I
Yeah.
mean, but I do think it's the idea of fast fashion that needs bigger education because you don't have to have a t-shirt for 2 weeks and then throw it away. But what we're also seeing in Africa, not necessarily in South Africa, in other countries, is the enormous dumping of fast fashion from
Yes.
other
Yeah.
places in the world.
Yeah.
So it's bad for the economy, it's bad for the community, it's bad for the environment. So it's a crisis that needs to be addressed at every level.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What happens to the South African cultural identity when we lose manufacturers and producers in this creative space?
Well, we lose opportunity and we lose a sense of who we are to a degree because now we're wearing the same clothes as everybody in Brazil and India and wherever is wearing, but they're also buying it from there. And the important thing about Temu and Shein specifically is they are not creative companies, they are copiers. So they look at what is going on the runway in Paris and then they copy it. That's why the European Union is taking so many steps against them being able to sell in Europe because they're stealing ideas. So, and if we don't afford South African businesses with the opportunity to share their ideas, to sell their
Yeah,
ideas,
yeah.
it's a lot that is lost.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree 100%. Let's just quickly chat about Commerce Market and the platform that you've created. Um, I think what I would like to understand is you mentioned that you have these six national events. Is that over a year, period of a
Correct.
year? Right. So that brings in 60,000 odd visitors. I'm curious to know how you guys think you do it differently in terms of not only supporting the creatives, but also protecting them and uplifting them.
So I think we need to understand the process first. That might be interesting. So we are the only, as far as I know, event like this or market space which focuses only on local. So we are very strict. You have to manufacture local to be on the show. And if we find out that you do not, I mean, we had a very big brand who was part with us for a long time, now moved their manufacturing to Mauritius. And we said, sorry, can't be here anymore. Because you could have solved that problem here.
Yes, yeah.
So, how does it work? Every year we open applications for a 3 month period, then we get thousands of applications of people who want to be part of the show. We go then through an online vetting process. Then we schedule viewings and we meet potential businesses in person because we need to understand the creative or the entrepreneur. We need to see the product, we need to see the quality. Then you are selected for not necessarily every show. So some products work here, some products work there, or some people don't want to travel. And then you are booked for the next year. Because what we know is a lot of small businesses, especially the first time business, you need to know well in advance because these people are often doing it as a second job.
Yes, yeah.
A lot of people here at the show at the moment have to take leave from their corporate job to be at the show. We also compel the business owner to be at the stand, not just a salesperson. Because if the owner is here, or the designer, or the developer, they know how to sell their product, and they also get to engage with
Yeah, it
the
just
maker.
makes the
Yes.
experience much
So
different.
it's a
Yeah.
long runway before you're actually at the show. Then we have a team looking at them all the time. There's quite as you can imagine, 400 businesses, quite a lot of backwards and forwards over a year
Yeah.
period in
Yeah.
terms of that. So there's a lot of support, and we really go the extra mile to ensure that everything is as easy and as we can't stop the rain this morning, as comfortable. We
Yeah.
also have this thing which we launched this year, which we call the F&B Master Maker Accelerator Program, where we the pool could apply and we select finalists, and then we provide them with seed capital and a 3 month marketing mentorship program, and then they go through rounds, and then on Thursday evening somebody would win 100,000 rand for their business.
Amazing.
Yes, and with the support of F&B, we also try and get financial literacy to the makers because often a creative person is not necessarily a financial person. And the thing which a lot of people are struggling with is actually to figure out how to optimize online because, they might not
Yeah.
have the skill. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
intervene over there.
Yeah. So over the years, you've supported 7,500 plus entrepreneurs, and I'm curious to know if there were any like standout success stories. I know recently, perhaps Gerber and Co. might might be one.
Absolutely. Hawemann and Co. opened their wool production facility after bringing where South Africa was exporting everything. Is an enormously successful story. There are many others. If you take a brand like Hannah Lavery, which started at KAMERS and now has stores everywhere, or another company, Mo's Crib, which most people might not know, started at KAMERS. They are now the biggest local sourcer of homeware for the majority of retail in South Africa and beyond. And she employs 350 people. So that
Incredible.
is the power
Wow.
here. It's a as I call a launch pad where you can come, you can test, and sometimes people come with an idea. And what is also great is, there's 160 businesses here on the floor today. They then start to work with one another, and then that kind of magic, that kind of mentorship and exchange with other like-minded entrepreneurs
Yeah.
changes the way some people do things, and they come with new things, or they collaborate and do something. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of stories, yes.
Oh, that's incredible. So many of the Suitcase and Chardonnay listeners are, well, they care about sustainability. How do you see this platform also linking into things like sustainable fashion and sustainable lifestyle as a whole in the economy?
No, no, it's very important to us. We don't allow any plastic on site, or as far as possible. We try to limit plastic and go for glass, and also look at what we do, and not to spend too easily on things we will have to throw away. But we have a sustainability award at every show. So in the whole selection process, sustainability is one of the questions people need to answer before they get selected. So it's very much part of the crow. I
Okay.
think also, the clothes you buy here, it is not cheap clothes. I mean, but if somebody buys exceptional quality linen dress for 3,500 rand, it is something somebody's going to treasure and wear for a long time. If we go back to consumer behavior in Europe, let's take French people, don't shop a lot. They buy key things, which are expensive things, but they know
Yeah.
how to mix and match it over a
Yes.
season. So
Yeah.
it's also coming into that mindset that,
Yeah.
could help.
I think we've probably unlearned how to dress that way, as
Yes.
you just mentioned. And it's something to educate ourselves on again, which is actually quite exciting because
Yes.
it's something new
Oh,
and
and
fresh. And
style. No, I'm wearing the Hawemann Co. shirt, just so, I mean,
ah,
this is one of their shirts, yeah.
when it comes to local creativity, you obviously work with a lot of creatives throughout the year, and I'm curious, have you seen specific sectors that have grown better than others? Perhaps food or fashion or homeware?
I mean, fashion for us is always the biggest component of revenue we generate. But that's not an easy question to answer. I think what I would like to see more of is South African homeware being produced. Jewelry is also, we're seeing a lot of jewelry applications, interesting, you know, use of materials in jewelry. Um, Mail is a section I would like to grow as well.
Oh,
I think
yes,
the
yeah.
local mail brands are not as prominent. I was, for instance, in Brazil last year, and there was so much clothes to buy for men. Versus here, it's kind of like country road and what else. Okay,
Yeah, and
kind
it's
of
all
thing.
the same.
Yes.
Sure.
So yes, and food is exploding. I mean, and it is exploding because there's a lot of focus in regional spas on stocking up local
Yeah,
pantry
yeah.
things, and it's also doing well because it's not necessarily as high cost item, so you can
Yes.
produce small batches and sell a lot so
Yeah, yeah.
throughout the year.
Yeah, true. Um, what do you believe is one of the biggest misconceptions that South Africans have when it comes to supporting local versus supporting these international mass produced platforms?
I think that it's not as good. And I'm not going to compare it necessarily to Temu and Shein. I'm going to compare our clothes to European standard clothes, which you would go. If you go into Saint Tropez, whatever, the linen dresses hanging there are as good or even better than what you would find there made by local people. So I think that's the first perception, is that it's not good enough and that it's not cool enough. So they're not proud enough to say,
Yeah.
I'm wearing it. I mean,
Yeah.
and I often say, I look at the shoppers, if we get them here, the ones who would come with a Louis Vuitton bag or clothes from a major international brand, then they see, oh, but if I buy this, that means nobody else might have it. So
Yes.
it's actually the
Yeah.
exclusivity of
Yeah.
it that is
Yeah.
then the appeal. And then they start to shop because they understand it.
So you really just need to get them here.
Yes. Rain. Not just,
Oh man. Hopefully it will clear up
yes.
soon. If you could suggest any practical tips for consumers wanting to start supporting local more meaningfully, what would those steps be?
Well, the first one, come to KAMERS
Yeah.
if you can. And then start to follow people, because the wonderful thing is if you understand the backstory. And that's really, for me, it's a very emotional journey for somebody to start something. And I think there are more people who want to start something, to learn from the processes, because a lot of people do this at night or in a garage. They also have children and they have a job and whatever. So it takes a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you follow your dream, it can come true. And there's so many of those stories
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. Definitely many stories to
Yeah.
be told. You've touched on the legislation that's changed a little bit in South Africa. Do you think we need stricter legislation and policies in South Africa to kind of limit the effects that these imports have?
Absolutely. So it can be stricter, definitely, to curb to increase the cost of buying it. But I also think it's a mindset, and as I said, strengthening and scaling the local manufacturing. There
Yeah.
needs to be a significant investment made into setting up facilities for producing socks and t-shirts and whatever, all of these
Yes,
things. So
yeah.
it's that kind of mindset that needs to, from both the private sector and the public sector, that need to come together, and hopefully it will.
Yeah, yeah. Looking ahead to 2026, what is your hope for South Africans in the creative space and in the bigger scheme of things in the creative and entrepreneurial economy?
Well, things are looking better at the moment. If you look at all the economic indicators, there seems to be hope, that things have we've turned the tide. For us, I mean, we need to get to a 4-5%, 6% plus growth rate. So we are performing better than inflation rate or even population growth at the moment. We are not doing that. So I'm hoping that more businesses can start and can survive.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that there will be more opportunities made available to young businesses to actually start. We have one of the biggest things we see is that the businesses often don't have enough money to get going. So some people here, I know, is going to sell out, for instance, by Thursday, and need to make through the night, so they have stock for Friday. But they
Yeah.
need the money to do the whole thing. So
Sure.
we need to get to a place where there is access for funding
Yes.
small
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
There's not enough of that at the
Yeah.
moment. That's my big hope.
Well, I hope that too. So, yeah. Thank you so much for your
Thank you for
time,
being here. It's
and
really nice.
good luck with the show. And I hope the sun comes through, and that it's just really a wonderful and very successful event.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
If there's one thing today reminded us of, it is that supporting local is not a trend, it's an act of preservation. Every handcrafted garment, every thoughtfully designed piece of decor, every bottle of wine poured at a family-owned farm is part of a much bigger picture, our economy, our identity, and our shared future. A massive thank you to Ben-Carl Havemann for sharing his insights and for the work KAMERS Markers continues to do in championing South African entrepreneurs. And if you are in Joburg this November, make sure to visit the KAMERS Markers show running in Sandton between 25 and 30 November 2025. Trust me, it's where you'll find the kind of pieces you'd be proud to gift, wear, use, and treasure. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to Suitcase and Chardonnay. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who believes in beautiful things with meaningful roots. And remember, every local purchase is a vote for creativity, craftsmanship, and a thriving South Africa. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and where you can, keep choosing local.